Welcome, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's in the room. And we have got 70 or so far people online. We're expecting about 150 who've registered. So I just want to say that what you're joining is a parallel event to the Commission on the Status of Women, which is we call CSW for short. This is a 2-week conference that takes place annually in New York, and it's a beautiful experience because women from all around the world are in the streets and in the conference rooms and in the cafes. You can see them everywhere. And we here, just to give you a little bit of an orientation, we're sitting in the Brahma Kumari's United Nations office. So very warm welcome to everyone. The Commission, I don't know what that is. The Commission on the Status of Women focuses on the equality of women and the empowerment of women. And the Brahma Kumaris, whose office you're looking into at the moment, it's an international organization that's affiliated to the United Nations since the early 80s. So that's 40 years. I could hardly believe it when I calculated that we have been affiliated with the UN for over 40 years. And we have a presence in over 120 countries across the world. So today, before I move any further, as I said, this is a global meeting, a global gathering, and so we have translation. And we have translation into 3 languages: French, Portuguese, and Spanish. And so for those of you whose first language is one of those and would like to listen, here are the instructions. I'm sure many of you are experienced with Zoom, but for the moment, it's you go to the meeting controls and click on interpretation, and then click the language that you would like to hear. And then you should be able to hear in the language of your choice. Just a reminder to myself and to all of our speakers today to speak slowly, because it can be very challenging to interpret, as probably many of you know, and we want to make sure that your very important voices are heard. So if I speak quickly, please remind me, and I will if you do. So this is a 2-hour meeting that we have today, and our intention of this meeting, and there's been many meetings that have been happening in many different places, as I said, in New York, connected to the empowerment of and the equality of women. And the intention of our meeting today is to reflect together and explore ways to develop inner strength that supports all the work that we do in the world, and also to help us to lead with love and courage. We here in this space and on this online space, we want to create an authentic space, a nurturing space, and we also want to together deepen our understanding and wisdom on this topic, because we're also developing that inner strength ourselves. So this is what we're going to be exploring. We're going to be sharing stories together, and we're very much looking forward to having this gathering together. So we want to invite your full presence into the room, those who are here and those who are online. This presence is actually a gift to each other and also to the world. We're from many different time zones, many different countries. We've all just come from doing something else. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important that we all come together in this sort of quiet atmosphere that helps us develop this strength. So we're going to start off today's, I'm going to run through the flow a little. We're going to start off today's gathering with a meditation so that we can bring all of our minds and our hearts into this space together. And then this is going to be followed by a very short video of examples of women leaders internationally who have been practicing this and leading us in the way of this type of leadership. So we'll be viewing that. And then we're going to have a reflective question for all of us. So those are for all of you participants in across the world, but also for us here in the room. And then we're going to have a wonderful panel discussion with our esteemed panelists here who are going to be sharing their stories and their own experiences of this type of leadership. And Judy Rodgers, our moderator, she's going to be moderating that panel. That'll be about an hour. And then to end with, we will have your questions. We'll be inviting you to ask questions to our speakers, and you can do that in the chat. And then those questions will be brought into the room, and then we'll close. So this is the kind of run of today's program. So we'll start. Just had a guest that's just arrived. Welcome. So we're going to start with a meditation.
A warm welcome to all of you. Greetings of peace, greetings of love, and this beautiful day. I invite you to join me in meditation and to follow these few words that I will share with you with the hope that you enjoy a few moments of peace and inner strength. So let's take a deep breath in and release, allowing the body to relax. Taking another deep breath. And as you breathe out, let all the tension in your body melt away. And as you watch your breath in and out, all thoughts and all sounds of the outside world fade into the distance. I become present in this moment. And I take this opportunity to turn inward and connect with my inner self in my own sacred space within. As I'm seated in my sacred space, I feel the peace, the tranquility, giving rise to my own confidence and my own inner strength. Sitting in my sacred space, I feel safe. I feel strong. But I need not be alone. I look upward, outward, to the source of all positivity. And I invite in that light into my sacred space. Giving me companionship and the courage that I need as I live out my life. Today I realize that I have not only myself, but I also have someone, the source of all goodness and positivity, by my side. And now I prepare myself for this wonderful event, which is going to do wonders. I'm going to learn. I'm going to share. And I'll inspire. Now take another deep breath in. Release. Thank you. And now we're going to watch this video filled with inspiration. So sit back, relax, enjoy. And Pratibha Daya, who is also part of the core team, part of our women's core team here at the Ramafoka's office, will then lead us into that reflective exercise. So enjoy the video.
So now we're having Pratibha first before Azza. So it's lovely to see Azza's babe, who is one of our panelists. Hi. Pratibha. Just waiting for a few minutes. There's Judy. We're just waiting for Pratibha. Judy is our moderator and Azza is our panelist.
Sorry, I think I just dropped off for a minute.
Okay. Yes, Pratibha.
Okay, so really just that feeling of the women that pioneered the path before us, the women that are with us now, and yes, going into the future, the women who will lead the way as well. So many of you would have been attracted to join this particular event, although there are hundreds of others out there, and something must have resonated for you in terms of the theme. And so we thought before we sort of enjoy the input from our panelists and begin to engage with our panelists, let's just take a few moments and just reflect for ourselves personally on this theme. And so I'm going to just put up a slide that will, I'm not sure if technically it's picking up. Right, I hope you can see the slide. So just for a few minutes, I want you to reflect on, in your life's journey, think of a time when you were courageous and acted from a place of love, or you saw that in another. Where did that courage and love come from? So a few moments, I want you to just reflect on that personally. What does this theme of courage and love mean for you? And as you reflect on it, I would invite you to then just share in the chat, maybe a sentence or a word that comes up for you.
think Pratibha is going to read. Pratibha, you're going to read out some of the things from the chat.
I think everybody can sing with love.
Pratibha, can you hear us?
I can, not very clearly.
Okay, are you going to read out a few of the things that have come in the chat for everyone?
Yes,
And then
I will read that out. We're just waiting for a few minutes for people to share first. So I'm seeing some beautiful inputs, hope, motherhood, light from within, family, confidence in self, desire for community and for the better, intuition, faith, feeling of safety within myself. My soul, the courage and love emerge from within an irresistible impulse to do what was right. The determination to succeed. It came from a place of wanting to know truth. Faith, a vision of the higher than us, the bigger picture, making a difference in the lives of employees, inner spirit. Courage for me is about going ahead with something, even knowing the outcome can be negative for you, but you do it anyway because something greater than you is driving you. Guided by my inner voice, asking souls to help, higher purpose. It makes me think of partnership, love from the cause of all, and the courage gifted to me and maintained within me. So lovely, lovely sharings, and I think it resonates beautifully for all of us. So just wanted to create this opportunity for self-reflection before we get into our panel. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Judy Rodgers. Judy has spent much of her working life in media and as a consultant and communication strategist, working with businesses and universities. And her emphasis has been on the power of the narrative, how the questions we ask ourselves and stories we tell ourselves affect our life's journeys. Judy, in 2004, co-founded the Center of Business as an agent of world benefit at Case Western Reserve University. And in 2007, she co-authored a book on altruism with one of our panelists, Gayatri Naraine, called Something Beyond Greatness, Conversations with a Man of Science and a Woman of God. And Judy has been a student of the Brahma Kumaris and teacher of Raj Yoga meditation for 28 years. And since 2006, she lives in the beautiful retreat center of the Brahma Kumaris in the Catskill Mountains, known as Peace Village. And so, yes, I hand it over to Judy, has a lot of experience. And I think personally, what I always appreciate, a very keen ear of being able to listen deeply and be able to draw out the very best in us. So Judy, over to you, and thank you.
And hello, everyone. I've been reading your introductions in the chat, and I love how global this is. And special hellos to our panelists. This is a conversation today among women leaders, and it's quite diverse. We have representation from Africa, Latin America, the Middle East / US, those raised as Muslims, Christians, Hindus. But in spite of the diversity, they have a lot in common. In particular, a real compassion for the world and a commitment to the role women are called to play at this time. So I am going to guide, I'd like to get that off my screen. I'm going to guide this conversation, but actually I'm going to encourage those on the panel to go ahead and speak when you are moved. And for you, Azza, you might need to click your hand thing, whatever that little emoji, the signal you want to speak, and we'll be watching that. But treat this as more of a conversation than a question and answer. I do have questions, but I'm more interested in the way that you all engage with each other. So feel free to jump right in. If one of you says something, the other that inspires something, go ahead and speak that. But first, I want to tell you who these panelists are. These bios, even though I've shortened them a bit, they're still, this is a problem. The older you get and the more impressive you are, the longer these introductions are, right? So I'm going to just do an essence. So let me introduce to you Cindy Quesada Hernández, the Minister of Women in Costa Rica. Cindy studied law in the Escuela Libre de Derecho in Costa Rica and has a diploma in senior management from George Washington University and in local public policy from the National University of Distance Education. She co-founded the first domestic violence network in Moravia in 2000, as well as the Political Women's Front of Costa Rica and the Network of Municipal Women. Since 2018, she's been an active member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, the Costa Rican section. And as Minister of Women, she coordinates the interinstitutional policies on gender issues in favor of the full enjoyment of women's rights, as well as the policies for care, prevention, and eradication of gender-based violence. So welcome, Cindy.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Azza Karam, who is on the screen with me, is the founder and principal of Lead Integrity, which is a global consultancy firm dedicated to serving the common good through the leadership, competence, and integrity of women professionals inspired by their faith. She serves as a member of the Board of Trustees of International Alert, the Temple of Understanding, and the Parliament of World Religions. She's a member of the UN Secretary General High-Level Advisory Board on Multilateralism. She's worked at the UN for 2 decades, where she coordinated the Arab Human Development Reports, co-founded and chaired the UN Interagency Task Force on Religion and Development. Born in Egypt, Azza is also a citizen of the Netherlands and resides in New York. Welcome, Azza. I didn't know you were also a citizen of the Netherlands. Okay, and Gayatri Naraine. Gayatri is the Brahma Kumari's main representative at the UN in New York. Gayatri, along with the Brahma Kumari's team at the UN, has been exploring transformation as a spiritual and universal phenomenon. She's part of the design team for the Call of the Time Dialogues, a global leadership dialogue that it's interested in the transformational depths of silent reflection and the impact this has on the actions we take for world benefit. Gayatri is the vice chair of the International Day of Yoga Committee at the UN. She was born in Guyana and lives in New York. She's lived in New York since 1978, and she and I wrote a book together that you heard about earlier, Something Beyond Greatness, Conversations Between a Man of Science and a Woman of God. Welcome, Gayatri. And Lebo Ramafoka, Executive Director of Oxfam South Africa, is an experienced development and social justice expert with over 30 years experience in the field. as an outspoken intersectional feminist thinker, and I had to ask her to tell me what an intersectionist feminist thinker was, and strategist. She is a sought-after speaker, facilitator, and trainer who is passionate about social justice, particularly for young women and girls. She is a prominent media commentator and advocate on social issues facing women in South Africa. Lebo is currently the co-chair of the Communications Technical Task Teams of the South African National AIDS Council, SANAC. She also served as a technical consultant on the President's Inclusive Economies Working Group, with particular focus on recognizing women's unpaid care and its contribution to the economy. And this is her birth week. She had a birthday days ago. So happy birthday again, Lebo. Okay. So since this panel is interested in transformation as something that begins with the inner being, I'd like to start by just understanding a bit about your inner beliefs. So I want to ask a couple of setting questions here, which are, what was the religion of your childhood, and what religion or faith sustains you as an adult? And then let's start with you, Azza. The religion of your childhood, and what religion or faith sustains you as an adult?
Thank you very much. I cannot start without first giving tremendous gratitude, appreciation, and respect to the community and the organization of the Brahma Kumaris. I've been able to walk alongside in many ways for almost 2 decades now, and I am eternally grateful for the space of mercy and love and light that so many of them continue to provide. So I just want to pay tribute to that. I want to answer your question very simply, that I was born a Muslim and I am very much still a Muslim. And my Islam is a religion that is built on a faith that is built on acknowledgement and respect for each and all of the faiths and faith traditions.
Thank you. Cindy, the religion of your childhood and what sustains you as an adult?
Well, when I was a child, I was Catholic, and now we already have a little bit of this conversation. I believe that I have strong beliefs in what Catholic says, not because I think it is the truth, but it's the path that make you have sense in this world. I believe that if you are a good person and do what Jesus tells us about being kind with others, that's pretty much what it is in this world. So, yeah.
So it's Catholic expanded.
Yeah.
Lebo, the religion of your childhood and your current, what sustains you currently?
Yeah, I was raised Catholic as well, but I think because the majority of South Africans are Christian, I became Christian, but there wasn't any form of Christianity that accommodated me as a woman and that accommodated me as a feminist. Mm-hmm. And I also was curious about the historic exclusion of African spirituality in beliefs. Mm-hmm. And how, Black African people were given Christian names, which really eroded who we were as a people. So I opted to be a seeker. So I am very curious because at the core, I believe in the higher good and there being a higher being, but there hasn't been one Christian faith that for me has held all of who I am, in it. So I have a combination of beliefs. I follow what makes sense and helps me articulate what faith to me, which is a mixture of a number of things. I also studied feminist theology because I think the person that I was in understanding feminism and the way religion and Christianity was preached made me more curious about what else is not being taught and what else is not being said. And that is why I then went about and studied feminist theology. And in fact, found that a lot of books in the Bible were actually written by women. Just FYI.
Good.
Mary Magdalene, right? But that's a conversation for another day, maybe. You are a Catholic cum Christian cum seeker cum feminist theologian. Theologian. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a feminist. Maybe that's how you put it.
That's the essence, right? All right. And Gayatri, the religion of your childhood and what sustained you as an adult?
Well, I was born into a Hindu family. I don't know if I was a Hindu, a practicing Hindu. And I went to a Catholic high school. And I grew up in a community in which religion actually became something cultural. So it was a cultural affair more than the birth of the baby and the sanctity of the day. So was Diwali, so was Ramadan, Eid. So I suppose because I was born in a Dutch turned British colonial peninsula country, and people were brought into that country from far away, say from India and Africa, and of course, the indigenous people were there. I think we did not see religion so much as something that divided us, as it was to come together and celebrate as cultural events. So I grew up very much in that kind of an ethos. But in my early 20s, I was introduced to something that was spiritual, something that attracted people from all different religious backgrounds, and taught them how to do something called meditate. And they would all sit, different races, different religions, different colors, and they would be focused on a being of light. And I think in my early 20s, I began to see things by focusing on a source of light that was universal, to look at core beliefs of every religion through this spiritual lens, and to know that they were bringing something not so much to promote an established form of religion, but was bringing something to the enhancement of people's lives and lifestyle. And that's what I focus on in my adult years. And I must thank the ethos that I was brought up in, see religion beyond dogma, and to see it more as a cultural event that brought people together to celebrate.
That's nice. Religion is cultural. And then the source of light. All right, so we've got the ground. I wonder if we might shift a little bit to this business of the transformation of leadership. Because we're talking about what it is to be a transformative leader, but I want to just linger for a minute on leadership itself. There seems to be a widespread disappointment with leadership all over the world. So I want to engage you all in thinking about how we explain this and what solution there might be. So I have two questions for each of you. And let me ask them separately. The second one should stir up more of a conversation. But the first one, in a word or a few words, what do we want from our leaders? And Gayatri, let's start with you. What do we want from our leaders?
To be honest, when I look around the world and this word leader and leadership, creates within me a response that is not very positive. And so maybe what I want from our leaders in today's world is to drop the title of being a leader or of leadership, and to really go into the meaning of what I am put in a position to be before I do something with the opportunity that I'm giving to serve. So I feel that I would say break up, dismantle this structure of leadership, and let us go to the core of the human being and the call to that core. And the call to the core of every human being is to be of service. What is the quality of the service that is emerging out of my being that is allowing for things like inclusiveness, equality, respect, beauty? What am I upholding with this call to serve my fellow human beings and my environment?
Okay, so drop the title of leader and pose the question, what should I be before I move into action, before I lead, before I serve, and then go to the core for human beings of what does it mean to serve. All right, so let's go to Lebo. Lebo, what do we want from our leaders?
So maybe the way I want to respond to it is what is wrong with leadership at the moment. I think the combination of positions and the combination of capitalism means that anybody that comes into a position of formal leadership is not going to be of service to everyone. They are going to be of service to the powers that put them in that position. And those powers inevitably serve the minority, and they inevitably serve what has become the capitalist world order of winner takes all, the minority at the expense of the majority. So if we are going to do, the dismantling, which I am fully in agreement of, we need to recognize that the way we assign leadership and power is fundamentally problematic. And when you start there, then, you recognize that. For me, you then say that you need to change a world order that is going to enable selflessness, that is going to enable acting in the best interest of the majority, particularly the most marginalized, as the form of leadership that you would want to have. For as long as we are sitting in structures where countries, depending on their power, even at world platforms like the UN, will determine whether or not some decisions are taken, you will never see people being able to exercise the kind of leadership that is inclusive, that brings everybody together, and that protects the vulnerable and shares resources equitably. That's the other thing.
Got it. In Lebo's bio, it says she was thrust into activism at an early age. And I know that's true. Let me see if I've got it, Lebo. What's wrong with leaders, what's wrong with leadership right now is the combination of position and capitalism. That this predisposes them not to serve the majority. And that the way that we assign leadership and therefore power is in itself problematic. That it will never, we have to change the world order if we expect to get selflessness from our leaders and their willingness to act in support of the majority. Is that the essence?
That's correct.
Okay. That's beautiful. Okay, Cindy, what do we our leaders?
Myself the best way I can, because it's a very profound question. And I came from the leadership, obviously, because I in a position where I lead. And there is two words that I came to my mind. First is vision, definitely, because we need leadership with a vision. Where are we going really, where the head go, where are our path, what we're doing now in order to get to that place, which is the right place. So I think that vision has to be shared with the people with kindness, but also with truth. We have to start talking with the truth. And I think if you are yourself and you put outside and be vulnerable and be yourself and be what is your core and put it outside, I'm pretty sure that if you have the vision where people feel like it's the right path, you're gonna have that chance to lead. And the second one, what I think it's very important is when you lead, not only you need to have that vision, but the conscious of that what you're doing now, it's going to affect not only the path, but also a lot of people around you. So you have to be acknowledged what is the power for, what is this opportunity to serve. What are you going to do with that? Because it's going to affect a lot of people. So it's the responsibility of use that power to make the change that you want in the world. And that's applied to make the effort to help people to fulfill their potential, because that's what the power is. It's not because you have the power to do things only, but to give them to the rest of your team, to the rest of the people, the opportunity to rise themselves and to be the full potential. Then you're gonna have a lot of people in this journey to that vision. And I think I'm agree with you about what is the global is doing now, but I believe, I'm a believer. So I believe, and I'm gonna put the Costa Rica's case. Obviously, it's a small country, but we also have a lot of challenges, and this opportunity to have a person in a great position where he was outside the country for 35 years. When I met him and I heard him, I said, it is somebody who doesn't own or have a debt with nobody here in the country. So he has something that is very powerful, which is the freedom.
Yes.
That doesn't have to pay any debt with nobody. So the only things, and that's applied to us. We don't have to, I don't have to do a lot of things in order to he name me. By the way, I find out that I'm gonna have this position 2 days before I took it, because we never thought about it, and we always was said nobody has a place in this government, or for sure, which is like always happen with the politicals. You already know where you're gonna work if you put your effort in that. So we just put the effort in that because we believe that we need somebody who has the freedom and the braveness to do what it has to be done. So when he called me and he asked me, you have to deliver for the women. That's your task. So it's the freedom to do what you think it's the right thing, and to have a empowerment for my leader to give me the opportunity to be myself and to put all together in order to have results. So I think the vision and the use of power to encourage and to help the other of the team, the other of the community to rise up together and fulfill their potential. I think this is the two combinations. And for that, you need to be yourself and put yourself out there and be vulnerable and be kind, definitely, because it's through love that.
All right, let me see if I can recap this. You correct me if I'm wrong. So you believe the most important things are vision and the consciousness of the impact of your leadership. right? Under vision, where are we going and what do we need to do to get there? And your ability to be authentic and truthful, right? And then in the consciousness, you have to acknowledge the responsibility that you have accepted to make change. You have to help people fulfill their potential. You have to give others an opportunity to rise up, right? And you gave a little nod to the current leadership in Costa Rica, saying, interestingly, that one does not have obligations anywhere, doesn't owe anybody anything, and therefore has the freedom to do what they think is right. And you feel the same about your position. Is that right? Okay. Eloquent. All right. Azza, what is it that we want from our leaders?
Good grief. I think everybody's covered it so beautifully, Judy. And now I know where to go to for the best form of putting things concisely. I'll be talking to you much more, Judy, going forward. I just want to say it takes two to do leadership, meaning what? It takes those who are leading, but it also takes those who are looking for that leadership or willing to be part of that community that leaders are leading. I think it's not just what does it take from one person or from a couple of people, but also what does it take from those of us who are looking up to leaders or wanting to work with and to walk alongside our leaders. So it takes two to tango, so to speak. And I think it's never going to be good enough if you have a person who's trying to do everything right, but a community that doesn't want that person. So that won't work either. And I learned that lesson the hard way myself in my own career and journey. I think there's another reality too, that we all look for leaders, and I completely agree with everything that has been said, especially the very apt warning, I think, that Gayatri gave us. Why don't we just do away with having to think about and talk about and do this leadership business and just look within? And I completely agree. The truth, though, is that there's a natural human tendency to look for leadership, to look for a role model, to have someone who's there taking responsibility on our behalf. We do that anyway. Some of us do that anyway, most of us actually. Very few of us want to just live inside a cave on our own. We wish to be part of a society and a community. And in that wish is also a look towards, if it's, I will certainly serve, but I need some kind of guide, framework, etc. Example, light, that I can see and I can see through. So we have that tendency anyway, and that's why some of us are anyway put into positions of leadership, even though we wouldn't necessarily see ourselves in that way. But that happens. We tend to look for those who will give us guidance. And I think therein lies one of those, if you will, very natural instincts of humankind. Some of us have a natural instinct to look towards guidance and for guidance. And some of us have a natural instinct to grab the opportunity for this ask and to serve in that role. Frankly, I think, as Gayatri said, in both cases, whether we are looking for the light or whether we are seizing the moment to be in the light, in all cases, we need to have an introspective and self-reflexive attitude. And I think that's what women in particular can bring to the table. But I think we have to be really careful from this assumption that all women are all good, and all women do things right, and all women will be the answer and the solution to our universe. I think we need to be I think we need to be very cautious of that kind of an attitude, because at the end of the day, competence and integrity require that we work together. Again, I go back to my first point. We cannot lead if there is no desire for our leadership, and we cannot lead if those whom we are committed to are not committed to us.
Okay. So you're talking about something that's a little bit like consensual leadership or something like that. You know, in other words, the leader agrees that they're going to lead, they're going to take responsibility, but those who are being led have a certain stake in this too, I guess.
Yes.
They,
Yes, that's the whole point.
yeah, okay. We chose you, or we like that you're out there, and we're gonna do our best to support you. You said we look at leaders to kind of provide a guiding light, and but you cautioned us, and this is interesting, to be careful that in our enthusiasm for women, we don't act like all women are the solution. That it's always a woman is always the better choice, that it's really about competence and integrity. And so are we talking about women, biological women, or are we talking about the feminine dimension of humanity? Azza, what do you think?
Both and more. Both and more. I think there's lots that we think we know. There's also lots that we don't know. Yes, there is, of course, to every one of us, there is a feminine. I'm not sure that many of the current political leaders that we see around us today necessarily acknowledge that feminine in themselves or manifest it. I'm not sure. And I don't know what it would necessarily mean. All I know is feminine does not mean all good, all wonderful, all terrific. We carry all aspects within us. And I think, do we really want to search only for the feminine? Do we really want to highlight the feminine? Do we really want to give prominence only to the feminine? I don't think so. I think it's wise to look at all facets of a situation. There is feminine, there is masculine, and there's things that we don't even have a name for. At the end of the day, accountability to those that we are with, whether we happen to be leaders or not, it's an
Quien
accountability
sea,
is the point.
al final estamos todos, ¿no?
We're hearing the Spanish translator. Is there a for us here?
I mean, maybe if I can come in here, I think
Yes.
we are forever dealing with a challenge of the fact that women, or those that identify as women, have been left out of leadership. I mean, if you think about the right to vote, even in a country like the US, that it was something that had to be fought for. You know, if you think about South Africa, where I come from, the idea that it's only been 30 years that you could get a democratically elected government, there is going to be a tendency to be deliberate, to look for women. But what I like about this conversation, it deepens it to be saying that is not where it ends. You are just not going to say, just because we've got women in positions of leadership, they will represent good, they will represent everything that is going to be inclusive. And that is why I started talking about political systems. What enables anybody who is in a position of leadership to act in the best interest of everybody? And I do agree with the issue of it is also about those that are in particular positions and those that are also looking at those in those positions to be led. And what is the kind of almost delicate dance that we've got to have with each other. But on the issue of women are always, it's not synonymous to good. I think that is an important thing to carry even as we ask for and advance women's leadership. It cannot happen at the expense of any accountability we may ask for anybody in a position of leadership. We should also understand that for as long as leadership systems, our governance systems are patriarchal, you could well find women who act not in the best interest of women, even when they themselves are women. And I think that the ability to self-reflect needs to be a very core requirement of leadership. The ability to look, at our own leadership, the ability to be able to change course, the ability to be vulnerable, the ability to bring others along with us, the ability to sit down and demand a different kind of leadership, which is often achieved when you bring a diverse group of people in leadership. And it comes back for me to the whole issue of how do you lead? Do you see yourself as the only one with the answers? Or do you see yourself as a facilitator, somebody with a vision, but the one that facilitates others?
Can you tell a story about that? In other words, you proposed, Azza opened a door and you've proposed that it cannot happen at the expense of accountability. And it requires self-reflection, it requires vulnerability. Can we think of any of you, but I'm going to you because you're mid-thought, are there leaders? We saw a lovely film that showed us however many, 20, impressive women. And we are focused on women's leadership today. But are there people whose leadership we can call out in spite of our disappointment in leadership everywhere? Are there people we can call out even locally and personally? In other words, it doesn't need to be someone who's on the world stage. Is there a story you've got that captures what we're talking about?
Look, I mean, I think for me, some of the best lessons in what it takes to be a leader, I learned from my father.
Talk about your dad a little bit.
Yes. And I think what I admired a lot about my father, and I admire people like him a lot because I'm so outgoing and I'm so, I'm out there. I admire people who are not. I admire people who are much more quieter, much more introverted. And I think, firstly, because I wonder what's wrong with them. I wonder why are they not out there? There is a fascination I have. But some of the things that I observed in my father that clearly don't come naturally to me, in a sense that I don't have his personality, was just how you knew that he got your back. So I grew up in a very small home, 3-roomed house, the kitchen, bathroom, whatever, was in a room outside. And here's a man without fail who would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, make a fire, make sure that there is water. There's 3 girls for all of us to be able to be ready. And, it's those things he passed on in 2010 that I think about, and I'm like, what goes on in the mind of somebody who makes it his business to wake up at 4 o'clock every day to be of service to others? I also know that he is somebody who allowed me as a girl child to believe that I've got a place in the world. And he did not do it loudly, but he would open spaces that would not be open. I actually have a very beautiful picture that just comes to my mind all the time, where I was wearing a pink dress, a pink jacket, pink socks, and pink shoes. And we were at a family function. And normally that is where you don't, the men will sit together and the women will sit together. And often the women are sitting together in the kitchen cooking and the men are sitting somewhere drinking. And I have this picture of my father having me on his lap. I must have been 8. And when you look at that picture, I'm actually asking the main questions. And, and that's just been me. I've always felt, sometimes not with huge success, that there is no space that is not open for me. And for me, that is the kind of leadership. Are you able to open doors? Are you able to bring others along with you?
Exactly. Open.
And the role modeling that he gave for me. And for me, it's even experiential. It's not what he said. We were not scared of him. We could question him. But it is how he served and he demonstrated that we had a place. That for me, I saw as leadership.
Let me speak to someone else whose father was a big impact in their life, Gayatri. Lebo's talking about the role her father played in modeling a way of leading, a way of being, a way of opening spaces. Your father was like that. Can you say a couple of words about, because he was also a soft-spoken leader. He was vice president of the country. He was an ambassador, but he was a soft-spoken man. What is it that we might catch from people like him?
Well, first, he never dressed me in pink.
You missed out.
So I suppose he always knew his children. He had 4 girls and 2 boys, and he always knew us from not from a gender perspective as much as from, I would say, a soul perspective, a personality perspective. And because of my tomboyish tendencies, I suppose he'll never dress me in pink. So I don't have a picture of myself in pink to reflect on. But I would say I have learned a lot from my father's way of being, more than him teaching me anything or disciplining me. He was very reserved and very silent, and I learned more from his silence than from his words. And I suppose this is why today, when I am in a position, a thoughtful position then, when I am about to respond, I remember my father's silence, and I move within my own silence because I know silence whispers in ways that sound doesn't. And so I'd say that for now, for what I've learned from him. But as I have this, as I'm speaking, I just want to reflect on this core concept that seems to be emerging out of our conversation, and that's on self-reflection. I do agree with Azza and others when they say this is not about just feminine principles versus masculine principles, but this is a deeper reflection on life and on what I call a soul, on realizing what life is and realizing what constitutes life. Now, whether you see life as a collective force that will include men and women, that will include whatever, whoever, in its equation, I think it's very important to look at life as inclusive, look at life as leaving no one behind, look at life as a sum total of individual sparks, as it were. But it's also very important to look at that individual spark of who I am. And in looking at who I am, I will discover within me that I do have both these characteristics that the world put into categories of male and female. But when I look at it within myself, maybe I won't identify it as male or female, but I would identify it more as my characteristics. And how do I use those characteristics, perhaps in a balanced way, perhaps in an integrative way, perhaps in ways that would make me respond in meaningful ways, in ways in which I love when you say, Cindy, that it's not just about the people you're helping to support, but it's a path to allow them to be part of. It's like sharing the same road of life. And everyone is entitled to be on that road of life. It's a path. Am I making space for them without discriminating against, without alienating, without marginalizing? And those are really connected to this core concept of characteristics of life. And it has nothing to do with feminine and masculine. And I think that that's one of the dismantlings that we have to do. We have to stop seeing life through the lens of gender. Until we do that, we will always have reason to believe that we're lesser than women, because we're living in a patriarchal, systemic world that, for me, in many instances, intentionally or not intentionally, we've inherited that would discriminate against women. And women, no matter what position they happen to find themselves in, I think sooner or later that patriarchal system will work against them and force them into compromising on who they are, or they step away. But courageous women never step away, right? They just find another platform to act from. So I just wanted to put these other elements in looking at core reflection of self.
Very nice. So self-reflection, life as a soul. Azza, you've got your hand up?
Yes, thank you, because I'm, as always, very inspired by what Gayatri says. I think she's absolutely fundamentally correct and has hit the nail on the head when it comes to, we need to look at all of us in the way that we serve and the way we exist, and especially leadership without necessarily this gendered lens. I completely agree with the principle of that. The practice, however, is that we do tend, even as women, we tend to look through a gendered lens at our leaders. There is still a preference amongst many women, and we're living in a year where the largest numbers of elections will ever be held around the world. And if we look at electoral trends and voter turnout trends, which I think are also important in this beautiful conversation, we will realize that historically and traditionally, there are a lot of women who vote for men, preferring male leadership. Now, we can ignore that and just say, well, we're still struggling with a patriarchal outlook and structure, or we can look a little bit more deeply to see why there is this tendency. And if we acknowledge the facts, the data that says there is this tendency, then in many parts of the world, by the way, it's not just, north, south, east, west. This is actually quite a widespread tendency that many women vote for men. Even when other women, perfectly competent women, are running. So if we look at this fact, we might also have to come to terms with the fact that we have a natural tendency to want to see certain characteristics in power and maybe not like to see other women in power, maybe resent that other women who remind us so much of ourselves can themselves be in positions of authority and power. If we don't acknowledge those sentiments, I think we will always be going around in theoretical circles about where we're living and how we need to be better. Many women prefer male leaders, fact. And if that's the case, is it because all women are at fault? Those who are electing and those who are wanting to run for positions? Or is it only because of patriarchal structures that we're used to? Now, seriously, what's it going to take to get over that? Or are there other factors there, which is a natural tendency for both kinds of male and female to want to be in the same spaces together? And if so, what does that oblige us? Because you can't expect women leaders to change the world on their own. They need a community, they need allies, and if many of their supposed allies will prefer to go with the other guys, where does that leave us? What kind of call upon ourselves does this tendency require?
Go down for the translation. Maybe. All right, I got it. We've got this male-female thing in the room, and I want to put it to the side. I don't want to lose it, but I want to get personal for a minute, especially because I know, Cindy, we're going to lose you early. And so I'm going to throw a question at you, and then I'll try to come back to you one more time before we lose you on the hour. I want to get down to what you all are actually facing. I want to get out of the theoretical for a minute. I want to come down to the ground. And Cindy, so you're Minister of Women, and I'd like to ask you, what situations have you faced or are you facing currently that require the greatest courage?
Well, yes. Let's see. We're all agree there is a patriarchal world in the countries, and all the cultural still remains, and sexual difference on the role models and the stereotypes and everything. But one of the most challenges for me has been that those women who are supposed to be my alliance in this has been the worst challenge for me, because I do the things differently. and I came from another background, not necessarily from the feminism itself, but for the communicism, from the political area. And even I have, 20 years since I started working with women's rights and everything. It has to be, it's very frustrating to feel like in this, it's supposed to be together. And I always say we don't have to be friends, but we have to be allies, because we need to focus on those things, which is the main things for us. The time, it's our worst enemy, because it's running fast and never knows who's coming after us. And in this times of trouble, where there is some kind of, backwards on women's rights, you never know who's coming. So you have to be sure that what you have done and institutionalize some topics, so we can move forward. And there are the one who is pushing me back more than no one else. So it's hard, because when you know that you're gonna go this path, and oh, this is my alliance, obviously, and you got there, and those the one who has pushed you back, and be your fearless opponents. It's frustrating. It's I'm surprised at all. It's hard, but at the end of the day, I found another alliance, which it's a good thing, and I'm agree with when it says we need to bring to the conversation to all of us here. We have to talk about this. It's not a women issue, it's a society issue. We all have to talk about this. It's gonna be enemies or person who has their own mindset, and there is nothing to do there, okay? But there is a lot of people who can change, and if they're not gonna listen to the Minister of the Status of Women, but maybe he can listen to Minister of Economy, who is ally of mine, and he's working through make women in a better position. So it's hard, and also you talk about the men's and women's, feminist and masculine. Sometimes I see myself in my very masculine energy, doing things, but then I need to be part of the coquette energy, the feminism. So it is in us, both of them also. So you don't have to choose, because this is the whole being, the soul, and we're composed for everything. And sometimes it's hard to put outside politics or activities or gender root, which is accelerate some process on the women's agenda. But if you put that out there, and somebody's gonna, and the women, so it's supposed to be, your allies are gonna push you back. Sometimes for me, it's hard to understand, definitely.
Cindy, what do you say to those women who are supposed to be your allies and actually they push back? What do you say to them?
Show me how you do it. You already have this opportunity in the past years, and give me, results, and tell me what is wrong with this. If you show me that I'm wrong and this is not gonna help women, I bought it. I bought to you and I changed. But show me how to do it. And then there is no answers, because sometimes it gets to the end, and that's the frustration part, which is not necessarily an agenda for women. Privilege. And it's positions. And when I started speaking about the new voices, when we talk about intersectional, give them the voices. Those women doesn't need to have 3 or 4 degrees in gender, but they know by blood, by flesh, their needs. They know also the answers, and so give them the voice. They don't need a person who has the ability to interpret what they need. No, we have to give them the voices. So for me, give the intersectional to take you to the real people, not only that I assume from my privilege to talk about, but their realities. That's why we're trying to, and I think it's necessary in order to change not objective the goals. The goal is over there, but the way to get there, the languages, the tools that we are using, the alliance that we are some. I think that's for us, it's important. And it has to be some kind of resilient, and resistance to the status quo. So I think that's applied for everything, even for feminism sometimes.
Now, let me just ask the organizers here. We're supposed to stop and take questions in 3 minutes. I have lots more questions for them, but I want to be respectful. We started a little bit late. Do you want us to finish by, say, 5 after or so? Yes, you do? Okay. Then I want to ask all the panelists to answer one question. And Cindy, we're going to start with you before you leave. And that is, what do you tell young women who want to do big work in the world? What counsel do you give them to prepare for leadership? And I'm going to ask all of you the same question. What do you tell young women?
Do what you feel in your bones that you have to do, no matter if something that, crazy or not convenience. No, you just do what your inner voice tell you to do. And the world will open the opportunities, because it's how it works. I never in my wildest dream thought that I was sitting right here over there talking to a lot of women, but I knew that I had to do what it sounds good in my bones, in my energy. And I just through that, go to that and be true to yourself, listen, be kind with you. Nobody's gonna be more cercana, more close, more than yourself. We are very hard on ourselves. Mm-hmm. So be kind with yourself and protect your soul, but let them light and use everything you do it with love. Sometimes in the leadership, we lost a little bit when we're frustrated, or we have deadlines, or we have a lot of things to do. And when I feel like I'm, losing my way of being, I have friends, my circle of friends who told me, I don't like you these days. Mm-hmm. It's not you. And you need that in your life to remind you that the path of love is the way that everything comes together. And bad thing is going to happen because it's life, but the way you react to those that doesn't, you cannot do anything about it, but you have the control to see yourself how to respond. So always try to have love in your life, be brave to defend your beliefs. Definitely, no matter the position, always the constancy of being truthful with what you said and what you've done is your best card in the presentation. That's
okay. Well, thank you so much. It was nice to be with us, Cindy. All right, Lebo, what do you tell some young woman looks at your resume and shows up to say, I want to have a big life like yours? What guidance do you give her?
I mean, I think often young women do not appreciate and understand the systems that affect how we show up in the world, and that those systems are going to require them to act in solidarity with each other. I think we have sold too much a narrative that one can do it. And while that is true, I think it's also important to recognize that all of us are standing on the shoulders of other people who have brought us where we are. I may be the one person in the leadership position I hold right now, but throughout my history, I have had women, some of them who will never be in positions of leadership, but who have helped me to be where I am. And I think solidarity, I do believe that in a patriarchal society, even when women believe that men are better leaders, it's because we are living in a system that will use every form of weapon against women, the media being one of them, shaping the narrative of any woman that wants to stand up. It's another thing. And that what you need to do is to be in solidarity with others. And it is the same way as the previous point about others are there to be able to tell the truth that other people may not be able to tell you. Others are there is to support you and to protect you, but others are there to hold you accountable to yourself. And I think the space to reflect is a very important space. I think even when we are competent in the skills that we need to lead in different ways, the ability to self-reflect is important. And for me, self-reflection also includes very simple things like taking time to rest, taking time to be in silence, taking time to just be able to even yourself, ask yourself whether your own practice, your own belief is kind to yourself. Because I think what tends to happen is that those that are probably being hurt by the world, then, at the end of the day, also hurt themselves. So because women are held at such a higher standard, especially in positions of leadership, when you make a mistake, what is the self-talk that you have to yourself about your own abilities?
Yeah,
How
sure.
much are you able to reflect without punishing yourself, even before the world punishes you?
Right.
And there are so many ways in which we can be our own allies, but can build allyship with others in order for us to replenish. Because when we live in this world that is very polarized, it requires a lot of us to take a lot from ourselves. And a lot of men lead in places where they themselves are wounded. If you are leading in the place of gender-based violence, you may have experienced it yourself. If you are leading in a place of discrimination, you may have felt it yourself. And so how do you make sure that your own process of healing, of reflection is not compromised by your own need to be out there and lead and really respond to the problems of the world?
Well, thank you, Lebo. Gayatri, what do you tell young women who want to lead? And I'm going to step away for 1 minute, but
What do I tell young women who want to lead? I don't know if young women has ever asked me, help me to be a better leader. I don't think I've ever encountered that woman who's come to me and said, I want to be a leader. But there are young girls, young women, and young boys who are fascinated by the United Nations. And who would say that, could I come an intern at the Brahmakumari's office to the UN so that I can have an experience of what they do at the UN? Now, when I hear that, I know that he or she is coming from a very deep idealism then. They want to serve the world. They want to come to a place where it kind of fulfills the highest purpose that they would ever want, to be at the UN and to serve the whole global community. And so I remember at the beginning, what I would do is that I would interview the person asking me to come here. I would ask them, well, what is your interest? What is it that you're going to take most benefit from, et cetera, et cetera. And then I would have them come, get them a pass, and then kind of guide them toward that area of interest they shared with me. But it didn't work. Because what happened is that they stayed true to that particular area, and somehow they left feeling a little bit disappointed. Did you see those hearts going at the back of my head just now? That's wonderful. I thought it was outside of the window. So I realized that there was a little bit of a disappointment that they stayed true to one area of interest, but they didn't get to explore the whole. So after I realized that, when they would come and ask me that same question, I would say, no interview, I don't know what you want. Why don't you find out what you want? And so I would bring them here and then get them the UN pass and say, now explore. And I feel that that was very meaningful to them, because they then had the opportunity to discover the world through the UN in a way that I didn't set limits by saying that you had to focus on one interest area. And what I have seen is that they then flourish in their own right, because a few of them, one of them just left here, and he was from Malaysia, and he was a little bit older than a young, I mean, he is in his 40s, I think, no, 50s. So he's in his late 40s. And he left very committed to creating a program for young people that he is calling Impact. So I thought that even though we said, could you help us develop something for youth? He didn't stay just with that project, developing it, but he moved into other areas, and he created relationships, and he got to know people, and he got to know how other areas work. So I feel when a young woman or a young man comes and asks for that opportunity, we must not set limits to them, but give them a free rein for them to discover exactly what ignites their spirit of service and how it is they want to show up in the world. Now, granted that the Brahma Kumaris is an organization with a very heavy bent on women as leaders, quote unquote, I call them agents of change. I've dropped the word leaders, and I said, they are agents for transformation, they're agents for change. And they very much are aware that they're not just here to get stuck in a bureaucracy, but they're here also to discover new patterns and new trends that they are looking for. So those new patterns and new trends must be on the basis of what I call equality and leaving no one behind, and not getting trapped in old systems and old ways of thinking and old ways of looking at the world. And so that is very much encouraged in the young people that are coming here. Don't get stuck in what exists, but look for newness, look for new ways of seeing things, look for new ways of understanding things, and bring that to the projects you are going to be developing, or the paper you're going to be writing, or however else this impact of being at the UN will inform your life in the future.
Very nice. So give them a space, give them opportunity. That spiritual framework. Yeah. So Azza, young women, they come to you?
Has happened a lot over the years, as our leader Gayatri has so beautifully put it. Also specifically working in the UN, there's tremendous interest and passion and excitement and so on. I think there's actually, what I do is I often ask 3 questions that I think are helpful for one to ask oneself as a young woman embarking on any particular leadership space. And the first question is to ask yourself why. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be in that particular position of responsibility, authority? Why? What is it that motivates you? And from there, also understand, well, how well have you studied the context that you are in, both the internal, or that's an organization, the internal dynamics of that association, institution, or group, but also the external dynamics around you? How well have you studied some of these issues and things and spaces? And the last question I ask is, how do you intend to make allies? Because there's no way that any one of us can work on our own. How do you intend to do so? Now, in many cases, the question is, no, I haven't studied yet, and I'm not sure I will know everything yet. I need time. No, I haven't actually thought about how I'm going to build alliances yet. I haven't thought of that. I'm not there yet. And I always say, you need to ask yourself those questions now, and keep asking yourself those questions systematically. It's not just that you will ask them now and figure out what your answers could be or should be or might need to be, but these are the 3 questions by which you hold yourself accountable. Why am I doing this? How well am I learning and understanding and studying what's going on around me? And how am I building alliances? Because those are the questions that ultimately structure the way in which any one of us will approach this particular dynamic, especially on, as we heard earlier from the wonderful speakers, especially the aspect of solidarity and dealing with disappointment. Those are the things that can make or break not just a career, but a character and a person. When we find ourselves under attack, when we find ourselves torn to shreds by including other women that we love very much, and that we thought we were doing our best for, those are things that go way beyond disappointment. Those are things that can break our spirit. And therefore, pondering the question, how am I going to build allies and alliances? And what's that going to take? Doesn't become a matter of luxury. It becomes a matter of necessity. And yes, of course, there are much more competent men out there who are doing the same jobs that women are running for and hoping to run for. But that should be an incentive to be better learned about and determined to support other women. If we wait for women to prove themselves above all else, we might find ourselves waiting for a very long time. The point is that we are as strong as the most vulnerable amongst us. And sometimes we have to step up to the plate to support other women who may not have it all, who may not be perfect, but whom nevertheless we can afford and we should be determined to stand alongside and to support, precisely because they're not perfect, but because we know in our heart that they are the women who are inclined to be of service to us and with us. We should not just go for the best all the time. We should sometimes also as voters, sometimes also as community members, be determined to support those who are imperfect amongst us, because we know that they will be the ones who will stand alongside us. That determination to be in solidarity in spite of flaws, in spite of imperfections, that is what distinguishes a change maker and an agent of change from a community of like-minded going nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so lucky young women. That's all good counsel. I would just say the themes I'm hearing, and I don't think we're going to have too much time for Q&A. I'm looking for some guidance from Alicia to land us with one good question, because there's been very rich chat about a lot of this. But what I'm hearing is that the women and men relationship is a bit of a dance. And I don't know about all of you, but I had men mentors who held the door for me and showed me how to do it, because there weren't women in the positions I was moving into. So as part of our alliances, there are men in our alliances as well. I'm hearing the real importance of self-reflection, that in the heat of the moment, when it feels like the thing to do is start talking and start acting, the thing to do may be to not talk. To Lebo's point about her quiet dad and Gayatri's point about getting quiet like her dad, sometimes the thing not to do is not to talk right then, and to go inside and to check and see what's showing up for me, what's my inner voice telling me. This business about alliances and partnerships, nobody's doing it alone these days. Old models of leadership were about one great hero who rode in and saved everybody. Those days are long gone if they were ever here. And we're now about partnerships and alliances and solidarity, even between the leader and those who are being led. So lots of resonating themes, very rich. And Nalisha, if you want me to raise something here with the group, you need to tell me. What you've sent me is, so could it also be because women are running for power, they are still a minority and might not be the best option. We can't assume that a woman wouldn't vote for another woman. I don't know where this is coming from. Might it be?
That was earlier in the conversation.
Guide me.
I think the second question that I sent you is more relevant, but I think we could alter it a bit, where the question is, sorry, I realize I don't have my camera on. The question is focusing on youth feeling a sense of feeling disheartened. You know, the question was about the UN system, but it could just be systems that exist right now, about youth feeling disheartened or almost hopeless. And what could our response to them be about bringing that change into the world they're hoping to see? And I think that might be able to broaden it to fit our panelists.
All right, so final comments from anyone. That question seems to be in the face of disheartenment, especially from young people. And this may be in any system. It may be the UN system. It may be a governmental system. It may even be in the commercial world. When youth come in and they're hoping to have something meaningful happen or make a change, and they feel they can't do that, they don't see the doorway in. What do we do as those who are on the field of leadership, who have the ability to hold the door or maybe make connections? What do we do to those who are disheartened? To anyone?
I mean, I think one of the things that we also need to dispel in leadership is the belief that change is linear. So you will come in today, you will do a few things, and then some of the change you are going to see, immediately. And speaking about the UN, it's been very interesting because I've come to the UN, to CSW, and the way that I speak about it is that, at the beginning, from a local not-for-profit organization, you want to come and throw stones because it's like, why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing this? And then later on, you then become part of negotiations and you see how people can spend almost 2 nights arguing on words, on text. But you then understand that, that is, even if you just participated in changing one word in a text, you participated in a lot of advocacy work. And change is slow. And I think maybe it's the movies or whatever, we've sold it as you'll come in, you'll be the leader. It all appeals to the ego. You'll come in, you'll be the leader, and you're gonna achieve so much success. I often say in many areas where we don't see apparent change is to ask young people, imagine what it would have been if nobody spoke up. Mm-hmm. Imagine how it would have been if nobody did anything. So the measure of success is not always, did we achieve the goal? The measure of success sometimes is, did I raise my hand and do whatever little there was to be done at that point, contribute? And I don't think we've got good examples of contribution as leadership, contribution to any cause as a way in which you lead, as a way in which you contribute to a bigger cause. But I also think that we don't create spaces where people can really deal with their disappointment. I'll talk about women leaders, and we've seen them in our country. Some of them stand up and they really, like Azza said, they really get trashed and they disappear from public life. We never see them. I don't think that there are spaces where we say, what happened to them? How did they process that loss? How did they process that, what looks like lack of success? How do they harness those lessons How do they harness what happened to them, and how do we hold them when that happens? And it normally happens with young people. They are bright, they are, fierce, and they go out there and we throw themselves out there. And when disappointment comes, I don't know whether we've got a good system of saying it may not work out. And if it does not work out, how do you make sense of that?
Right, exactly. I like that. So we need to dispel the notion that change is immediate, change is often actually slow, and use a different metric. Did I raise my hand and do what little there was to be done in that moment? And then we need to make a space to help others deal with disappointment, process disappointment. Azza?
I think our distinguished speaker from South Africa was also pointing to the fact that change is not linear. In other words, you can actually go down before you can go up. And I think coming to terms with that very simple fact is indeed absolutely critical to those who are embarking on a career. One thing that I have found that my mother taught me literally on her deathbed, she made sure she would say this to me. She was a woman who had accomplished a great deal. God rest her soul. And she said, here I am, clearly I'm dying. I want you to know that the things that matter most, that keep my heart still alive most, is the memories that I have of the people that I connected with over my entire life. And the deeper and more meaningful those relationships are and have been, this is what keeps my heart now beating. And she said, that's the most important thing. And make a point in wherever you go in your career or your personal life, make a point of finding at least one person that you're going to feel the heartbeat of and love for a long time, because that memory will keep you going when the going gets tough. And I think that's the thing that I've said to a lot of young women who have bothered to ask is, it isn't the achievement, the physical achievements. Of course, you do your best to try those. As our distinguished speaker from South Africa said, it's if you manage to change one verb or one comma in a tedious sentence, that's brilliant. Actually, it's also, and maybe perhaps more fundamentally, it's have I made one friend whose memory and whose relationship will sustain later on, maybe not even right now. But if you leave a place, as has happened to me, and feel that I haven't made any friends in that space, then that to me is a sign of failure. But when I leave a place and I realize I have made friends, that is a sign of remarkable blessings. And I think this is what we need to aim for in our lives. Whatever the career happens to be, wherever the country, the people, if we can at least say, I made this friend, then we have come just a little bit closer to the divine.
Okay, that's beautiful. Gayatri, last thought?
Yes, I'd just like to echo what Azza said. And, Daddy Janki, who lived to be 104 years, one of our elders, once she said to Julie and I that, why are you here serving at the UN? And she said, it's for you to make friends. You're here to make friends, because that is, they use this word sustainable a lot, but that's the sustainable factor in success. That how well have you served will be determined by the friendships that you sustain over the years. And so I'd like to say that. And so for the young people, I feel for them, it's the same lesson. It's about participating, but participating not just with advocating something that you think needs changing or is right, but to participate in a process that's building relationships, and it's building friendship, and it's creating long-term connections. And I think that that is what is the most important thing, to remove disappointments, because those things are not measured by the outcomes in the way the world measures success with outcomes, but it is a sustaining factor in the way my life will continue and the trajectory it will take as I mature and become people like Azza's mom or like Daddy Janki, that when they look back, they say the most beautiful things that I've accomplished in life were the friendships I made, the connections I created, and the relationships that stayed with me.
Well, on that note, I want to thank all of those friends who came on with us today and who stayed on. Some of you, we were over 100 at one point, but some have had to go. We're still at 75. May we continue together in friendship like this. This has been very rich. I've enjoyed it immensely. And I will hand over to Marianne.
Well, I have to say, I brought this for each one of you. I don't know if you can see. So this is for Azza. It smells very good. And this is for Lebo. Thank you very much. Was very inspiring. This is for Gayatri with lots of love. Thank you. And this is for Judy. That was wonderful. I used to be there in CSW physically, but it was very beautiful to listen to all of you. And for us, it's very inspiring because we see that now is time, the time for women like you all, for us together lead with love. And you are very inspiring. And we are in Brahma Kumaris having a project of researching about that, because we have this vision of many women bringing the transformation that it's needed. And seeing how you are doing bring us a lot of inspirations. So thank you very much to all of you and to all the participants, because we know that we have souls from all over the world, from India, South Korea is awesome, and this part of the world, Europe, Africa, Latin America, and the North America too. So thank you very much for all of you to be here. And well, we hope to be connected somewhere somehow. And so Brahma Kumaris is all over the world. So it's good to connect. And sometimes we can meet and have a meditation together, and sometimes a conversation. And we know that we are all together bringing what is needed. So lots of love to all of you. And it's time to close. And we want to close on time because we know that your schedule is very tight. So thank you very much to all of you.
And we have one last thing to do together, because as you heard at the beginning of our session today, that it is Lebo's birthday this week, and we only found out about it a couple of days ago. And actually, the day she arrived in New York, and she'd had a long journey because lots of delays, and she kind of arrived at midnight, and we spoke to her the following day, and it was her birthday. So we thought that we would, it's only little, and I don't know if you can see, we have a little birthday.
That is very sweet of you.
A little birthday cake with a flower on it. To wish Lebo a very happy birthday.
Thank you.
And a wonderful year. You are an inspiration.
Thank you so much.
It's been such a pleasure to listen to you and everyone.
Thank you so much.
And we want you to make a wish.
Oh, wow. Yes. I really do need to make a wish.
Let me light it. This is from all of us.
Thank you so much.
You see, all of us.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
So much.
Happy birthday, dear Lebo. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a little cake for everybody. We wish you could give it to you. I know, Azza, it's Ramadan and you wouldn't be able to have it anyway, or you'd have to save it until tonight. I think you can eat after 6 or 7 when the sun goes down, right? I think that's Ramadan when you fast during the day. Is that right, Azza? Yeah, my dad used to do that. He used to follow that also. So, Gayatri, your birthday. Thank you. And one for I guess. Yeah. And one for me, and one for everybody who's still on. Probably they're going, and then we have a little blessing. But thank you for coming to Baba's to the Brahma Kumaris UN office here. We're very happy to have you, and you're very welcome to join us. Those online, whenever you're in New York, just give us a call, and we will have tea. And for those of you who are in New York, we have a gathering here tomorrow. At lunchtime from 1:15 to 2:30, and it's called Taking Time Out to Go In. So all the beautiful things that you've been listening today about the importance of silence, the importance of going inwards to find that strength, to find the love and courage that we need to serve, that's what we're going to be experiencing in person here tomorrow. So please send us an email. If you've registered, you will be able to contact us, and we will be happy to send you the invitation. I think most of you have received it one way or another, and you just have to register, because we need to. It's with this office. It's at the bottom of the UN Gardens, and we have security. So in order to get into the building, you need to put your names in security. But you're most welcome. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Azza.
Thank you. It's